All right, everybody.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, I am Herschel McWilliams. This is Live Jazz KC. This is Convo Improvvo with the wonderful, my face is in a shadow, with the wonderful host, Rob Scheps, featuring tonight, incredible drummer, based out of New York City, New York area, Brooklyn tonight, I believe he said. Bruce Cox, man, we're super glad to have you and excited to hear everything and all the stories that you have, and the conversations are always good. So this is another great one for the books, man. We appreciate you doing this.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, man, likewise, for sure. This is a little different tonight, however, because we have to record this, pre-record this, as opposed to being live like we've done since March, because Facebook's new rules about live music viewing events. So you're our guinea pig, so to speak. But I think it'll still be fine. We're going to hear some great tracks, hear some great conversation, and then we're going to immediately air this. So if you're seeing this now on Live Jazz KC, know that we've already recorded it, and any comments you type in won't necessarily be seen right away, but we will see them. If we do see them, we'll answer them. No worries about that. And you can always, per usual, we appreciate any donations you can give to us for the musicians that are hosting and being interviewed here at Convo Improvvo. And you can do that two ways. One through Venmo at Robert-Scheps-2, which will be in the comments there when I post the live stream, as well as through livejazzkc.com right here. at livejazzkc.com/donate. We appreciate anything you can give. It goes directly to musicians, where right now there are few, if any, gigs to be enjoyed by the musicians to put food on the table. So with that, I'll leave it to you guys. Rob, Bruce, look forward to it, and I'll be here by your side if you need me. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, thank you, Herschel. And hi, Bruce. Welcome, man. Nice to see you.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
All right, man. Well, so we had a few technical difficulties earlier, as is, everything in 2020 is difficult, but we made it and we're here. So Bruce Cox, we don't see each other a whole lot, but he's a dear, longtime friend of mine. I don't want to say old friend, longtime friend. We go back to Boston days together. Bruce was at Berkeley when I was at New England Conservatory. And I remember, Bruce, that you were one of the hot drummers at Berkeley and in Boston at that time. Were you at Berkeley with that whole crew of like Branford and Smitty and Tane and all those incredible players who were there for a minute?
Yes, it was during that same period, yeah.
Right, and so that was, I guess that was kind of early to mid 80s, something like that.
Yeah, early to mid 80s, yeah.
Right, okay. But what I did,
great time.
I'm sorry?
It was a great time.
It was. There were a lot of cats in town. I mean, there were older players, and there were people at NEC, and there were people at Berkeley, and there were even occasionally cats at Harvard who could really play, like Don Braden and then Johnny King, and
Yeah.
there was and then we only had about 4 clubs in town, but it seemed to be enough at the time, right?
Wally's. You remember Wally's on Mass Ave?
Yeah, Wally's is still there, and actually,
Oh wow.
Sean McGloin once called, what did he call it? Let me get it right. He called Augie's Wally's West. But I think the clubs that were mostly open, you just a hair older than me. You might have been there just a little earlier than me. I missed Lulu White's and Tinker's, but when I was in town, and I think when you were, we had Wally's and the Willow and 1369, which was also known as Springfields, and of course we had Riles, and then while we were living in town, the Regatta Bar opened, right?
Yes, yeah, in the hotel.
That's right, and then Scullers later. But what I didn't know until today, man, all the time that I've known you, I think of you in Boston, in New York, in Paris, but I didn't know that you were from Philly, man. Can you speak to that, coming up in one of the great music towns and jazz towns?
Yeah, well, I'm from Philadelphia, and we heard a lot of good jazz, but we also heard a lot of R&B too. I went to a lot of shows at the Uptown Theater on Broad Street with my sister, who introduced me to a lot of pop artists like Little Stevie, Moms Mabley, James Brown, a lot of artists like that. But and then on my brother's side, that's where I heard more of the local jazz. So I got a like R&B and straight ahead kind of.
Right. Well, and that kind of would describe you even to this day, wouldn't it? I mean, not every jazz drummer has the funk feel to do a gig like Fred Wesley's the way you have, but you've always been really good at and comfortable in and seemingly enjoying both kind of sides of the coin, straight ahead jazz in different flavors and more kind of groove oriented funk and soul things, right?
Yeah, I've been lucky that way.
Well, and it sounds like due partially to the influence of your sister, it's always been that way for you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it's nice, man. When I heard you play funk, I'm like, wow, damn, Bruce, that's great, But it's like it's a different bag, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a recalibration. But so basically, coming up in Philly, well, tell me something first. We always ask this question: how old were you when you started playing the drums, and was it your first instrument?
I think I went to Catholic school as a kid, so I think they tried guitar with the nuns, with sisters, married, and I tried that. I think it didn't work out so well. So, but drums kind of spoke to me. So,
well, so
I think I might try drums and I tried guitar and whatever else they were teaching. I was one of the class cats. So
Okay, well, Bruce, so how old were you when you started playing drums, and what spurred it? What made you want to go there?
Well, I guess I was like 12 years old when I started, when I got my first kid, and it was more of the, I think, more of the like the R&B kind of thing. Kind of got, yeah, that kind of inspired me more. But at the same time, there was people not too far from me, like Philly Joe Jones, who I got a chance to study and hang out with, you
Oh,
know.
so
So,
he was still alive and well and on the scene in Philly at that point?
oh yeah,
Wow.
I used to go to his house, and as a kid and take lessons, and yeah.
Unbelievable. And this is at the beginning, like 12, 13, 14?
No, that was a little later. That was,
Okay.
I guess I was older, kind of getting in my early 20s,
Well, then,
uh,
okay, then the
late
question
teens.
begs: if you were playing the drums, you were 12, and you were into basically R&B first. What flipped a switch for you that made you want to get serious about jazz? Who did you hear, and was it live? Was it a record? What happened? Do you know? Do you
Well,
remember?
people like Philly Joe, after hearing cats like that, and just it was like some local cats, maybe who didn't have big names.
Yeah,
Hearing them just put out some good music. It convinced me that that's what I wanted to do.
I see. Okay, and any shout outs that you would like to make to some Philadelphia musicians that you heard as a young man that really made a an imprint or a dent on you?
Well, I kind of don't remember a whole bunch of the names now,
I
but
see. Okay.
it was so that would have been like in a so Sun. Well, I used to play with Sunrise, so
I didn't know that you ever played with Sonny, and so
oh
obviously,
yeah, yeah,
no, you were in costume and you had to do the whole deal, right?
yeah. So I was, yeah, Sunrise, and it's Philly is rich. It's like it's the art, like I said, the R&B from the Uptown Theater on Broad Street,
Hmm.
and and the street stuff. So it was I was I kind of was immersed in the musical culture from both sides. Yeah.
Okay, and so correct me so I understand. So did you go to Philadelphia College of the Arts? Was that your first college, and then you went to Berkeley later?
Yeah, I went there first, and
Okay.
it was mostly classical studies. Like I played a lot of timpani and
Mhm.
mallets, and I played in a concert band, like
Okay.
stand drum, that kind of thing.
So, for lack of a better term, you would say that at that point you were what people call classically trained. You had that experience studying those other percussion instruments.
Yeah,
And
yes, I did. Yeah,
okay, well, now was there any jazz at that school, or were you just playing jazz outside of school when you attended
yeah,
there?
that was outside of school. That was kind of mostly. It was no formal training, and it was outside of school, and it was more of one of my loves that wasn't like I didn't have to formal training until I started studying with Philly Joe, but I would hear all the time some straight ahead stuff.
Right. Well, so
It
I'm
was kind
sure, we have listeners, this show, Bruce, is based in Kansas City, but we have listeners in New York and LA and all over the world, and people who, will watch this interview. I am sure that there are people younger than you who would like to know what was Philly Joe like, and what particularly did you take away? What did you learn from him, whether it was life advice or percussion advice?
Philly Joe. He was. I used to always see him as super cool,
Hmm.
and
Just like fly, like nice clothes, carry
yeah,
himself
fly
in a
and
dapper way.
clothes. Really know how to carry himself on and off the stage. Somebody who commanded a lot of respect, and I guess that part of it that was part of it as well. Not only his super, incredible playing.
Yeah.
But just him as a person, he was, somebody I could relate to, and
I got well on more of a drum tip. I mean, did he have you doing things like rudiments or technical things the way maybe Alan Dawson would, or was it really more about feel and about playing with the other musicians?
It was both, because I got a chance to study with Alan, so I could compare the
maybe their teaching
two of them,
styles. Yeah.
their teaching styles, and Philly kind of had I guess it was more organic for personally approach
Okay.
to the drum set, and
And didn't Alan? I mean, Alan had the ritual, and he had more of like a kind of set way of teaching drummers, at least initially, where everybody had to go through it, right?
rudimental ritual. But Alan was a incredible teacher, and he was one of the first teachers. I remember going to one of the lesson with Alan, because back in there when he had a studio in his basement, and
Okay.
I went to a lesson.
Was that out in Winchester, Mass, outside of Boston?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
I would have to make my way out there on a train or something. And I
Yeah.
went one time and I wasn't prepared, and
Uh-oh.
and he said something to me like, "Well, I see you next week," and that really impressed me. That I came back I was prepared afterwards. So
Now, do you
that
mean he
was
sent you away without a lesson, or just he kind of gave you the vibe that he knew you hadn't done the work?
both.
Both.
with with the vibe that you hadn't done the work, and without the lesson, and I paid.
Oh, so now for non-drummers, Bruce, the studio, as it were, the kind of greater esoteric meaning of the word studio, meaning the people that he taught over the years. I mean, the greatest drummers in the world, including yourself, study with Alan. I mean, I know that Terry Lynn Carrington and Billy Keelson study with him. And I believe, didn't Tony Williams study with him when he was a kid?
I think so.
So with Alan, I mean, I remember hearing him play, but of course I wasn't going to him for drum lessons. He was just a swinging ass, man, and he sounded great on those records with Booker Ervin and Jackie Byard and other people. And I think also with Phil Woods. Alan Dawson is an underrated drummer in the greater world. And what would you say about him that you would like to recommend to folks who are not that familiar with him?
Well, in retrospect, I see that drummers that I really dig and respect, they were good on the stand with their drums, but just good people. And I think that that made it complete, kind of, for me. Just
I see. Okay, so
the music and just being able to, a good person could take care of themselves, be respectful to others, and
sure,
but push down on the gas pedal when necessary, and just good cats.
Right. So you got your butt kicked by Alan, but in a way that was positive and productive.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. It kind of spurred me on, because I guess that the competitiveness, or in me, or that was a big part of it. Him saying like, okay, you got to work on that. So.
Well, so
and I knew that I knew that I could achieve whatever I decide. I kind of had an idea I could, if I put my mind to it, I could make it work.
Well, I mean, to me, man, you're a great drummer. I mean, you must have had at least some level of comfort knowing, well, maybe I can't do this now, but I know that I can. I mean, I guess you took up the challenges from Alan and Philly Joe. It was an encouragement, not a discouragement, right?
Oh, for sure. Definitely encouraging. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, so here's the question. How old were you when you left Philadelphia College of the Arts, and what made you choose Berklee? And tell us about that transition.
Well, I remember the day that I left. There was some situation that went down with the band that I didn't feel was fair.
Uh-huh.
I had a position for the first semester, and then the second semester, uh, I was no longer playing in a band, and I didn't think that it was it was you know
It wasn't
fair.
right.
Yeah, it wasn't right.
Yeah.
So I said I decided, okay, I'm just gonna drop out of school, but I didn't tell my mom.
Uh-oh.
So I went. Somebody said, "Oh man, this guy named Sun Ra. He needs drummers sometimes." So I went to Sun Ra's house and I said, "Hey man, I want to join your band." And Sun Ra said, "I got 1,000 drummers." So, but I went every day for. I went. I was going back every day because I was supposed to be in school. So I would go to his
Oh,
house
so
every day.
I mean, you didn't want mom to know, so you had to go somewhere, so you went to Sonny's.
Yeah.
That's
So I was going to
hilarious.
Sonny's house. And then after about a week or so, Sonny said, "Okay, I got a gig in Massachusetts,"
You
and
know,
I think it was bad.
you know what, Bruce, that kind of stick-to-itiveness sometimes, rather than being obnoxious, translates into the gig. I mean, Billy Harper told me that he went. I mean, he'll tell this story because we're lucky enough he's going to do an interview here on December 13th. But so I hope I'm not spoiling it. But Billy Harper has many stories. I'm sure he has more stories to tell. So Billy said that he went. You know, he came from Houston, Texas, and he goes to Elvin's gig in New York, and Elvin's playing somewhere for a week, and Billy says, "Hello, Mr. Jones. I'm Billy Harper from Houston, Texas, and I'd like to sit in." And Elvin said, "No." But Billy said that he went back about 6 nights in a row, and then Elvin did let him sit in. And I said, well, let me ask you a question. Who was playing tenor in Elvin's band at the time? And I figured it would be some cats I knew about: Joe Farrell, Frank Foster, Liebman, Grossman. He said Hank Mobley was in the band at the moment.
Mm.
Elvin's band was Hank. And he said when Elvin finally let Billy sit in, they stopped the band and made Billy play like a big cadenza. He was like just left there ass out. So he picked up the gauntlet and did it. And when he turned around, Philly Joe was sitting on the drums, not Elvin. So his first chance to sing with Elvin, Philly Joe, slid in there. But I guess what I'm saying, similar. I mean, Billy got told a hard no, but he went back for 6 nights and ended up sitting in with Elvin. And you
Yeah.
at the temerity, the stick-to-itiveness, and the will. Sonny told you a flat no, but you said, well, man, I'm going to go back. And then you started working with Sun Ra. So, wow, good for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you did that first gig in Massachusetts. What was that about?
That was well, we the rhythm section, we piled in the back of one of those vans, and we went up there, and it also reminds me of the of Sun Ra film we did on the International House in Philadelphia.
Uh-huh.
It was a concert they performed on the roof of the International House in Philly, and so that was nice. And it was well, Marshall Allen is leading the band these days because Sonny is long gone.
And Marshall Allen is either 95 or 96 now, and knock on wood, he's still doing fine. Did you know he was that old?
I didn't know he was that old, but it makes sense.
Marshall is not only 95 or 96, but an unknown source said that he still does very well with the ladies.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Unknown. I know who it is, but I'm going to leave it unnamed. Be cool,
Him and his red beard, right?
Well, I didn't know he dyed his beard red, but when I saw, do you remember the club Night Stage in Cambridge, man?
I don't know. I don't remember that one.
That was a pretty hip club. Actually, you may have moved to New York or Paris by that point, but Night Stage was a big club, and Sun Ra played in there, and Stan Getz played in there with Terry Lynn. And anyway, when Sun Ra played there, his beard was dyed bright orange. So,
oh yeah.
So that was happening. Well, so what is the dichotomy with Sun Ra between playing so-called normal jazz, the swing charts that he wrote for Fletcher Henderson, and standards and modal tunes? How does that meet Ancient Egypt and Saturn and all the other Sonny shit? You know, what was that experience like for you? Because you probably had to deal with both, right? Both
So
aspects.
it was up to the individual to put all the pieces together. You know, try to make some sense out
Oh,
of the cosmic mystery.
so he didn't lay it all out for you.
No, he didn't.
Okay.
And so it was a questioning time to question your ability, question the origin of Sun Ra, and just yeah, because from I was kind of used to the classical side and then the R&B and the straight ahead, and so it was a bit different because
Sure.
from what I thought, you know, it should be like charts and stuff like that. It was trial by fire
Yeah, and
kind of
you
thing.
must have been pretty young at this point. Were you just 20 or 22 or something like that?
Yeah,
Yeah, man. So
and Sonny's place was you know, it was a he had a place on, I think it was Rittenhouse Street in Germantown, like a nice big building, and it was a lot of musicians in the building, and so I was coming from my mom's house all clean and everything,
right.
and I would go there, and it wasn't as clean, you know, in certain ways. And I remember one experience where one of this helper, it was somebody who Sonny had helping him, and and Sonny would say, you know, where are the charts for this piece, this one piece? So the guy goes to this big pile of clothes and everything, and
Hmm.
he's digging in there, and he comes out with all the parts for the chart, and I thought that was amazing. It was like kind of unorganized but organized, you know. So
So you mean giant pile, but he found the needle in the haystack.
you found the needle in the haystack. There you go.
All right, pardon my call. Well, that's heavy. So did you stay with Sonny for a while, or was this just for a few gigs or a couple months or something?
I guess I stayed with him for at least a year. Yeah, at least a year or two.
Okay, and where did
Yeah.
you all go? Did you get to go to Europe for the first time with Sun Ra, or Japan?
No, I didn't go to Europe or Japan with summer. It was mostly here in the States.
Okay.
Like I know we would it was in New York and Massachusetts and stuff like that. In Philadelphia, we played a couple of clubs in Philly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so the chronology, help me and the listeners out there. Did you do this work with Sun Ra before you went up to Berkeley?
No, yeah, this
Okay.
was before I went to Berkeley. Yes, yes.
Yes, it was before. So basically,
It,
this was
it was before.
maybe the pinnacle and the end of your full-time Philadelphia experience before you moved on to Boston, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So interesting. So most Berkeley students are just 17 and 18-year-olds who think they're hot shit in their hometown and want to go learn more about music. But you had the experience of being on the road with Sun Ra for a year before you went to Berkeley. It almost seems backwards, but it's very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
So,
obviously, then you were a little more seasoned and had a little more experience than the average Berkeley freshman, would you say?
well, yeah, I had definitely done a couple of gigs and
Yeah,
rode to those gigs in the back of a van.
that's right. Well, can you tell us? This is just my own personal thing, but as a tenor player, one of my biggest influences and one of my favorite people is John Gilmore, and
Oh my.
I'd like you to speak about John Gilmore for a minute, if you would.
Well, I remember John. He was one of the bigger cats in the band. And he had his own room in that in Sunrise building,
Hmm.
and you're bringing back some memories. I remember we'd go up to his room and hear some stuff. He kind of got me a bunch into Train too, because I didn't know too much about Train before, But after checking out John Gilmore, I started listening to some more John Coltrane.
Well, and you know that there's kind of a legend that they were friendly and that Coltrane acknowledged that John Gilmore was an influence on him.
Hmm.
Very interesting. I mean, so when you think, I mean, you know that from everything that we know about Train, not having gotten to meet him because we were too young or we weren't born yet, it seems like John Coltrane was very open to a lot of things, and it seemed very clear that he had a lot of respect for John Gilmore and might even have taken a few things that he heard John Gilmore play with Sonny and kind of put them into his own brew, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I find it interesting like that. I met him once in Boston when they came, and I just delivered him a message from George Russell, with whom I worked, and I just said, "Hi, John. George Russell told me to say hello to you." He goes, "Oh, George Russell." But he seemed like a kind of very mellow, sweet cat, you know, not a whole lot of, sharp energy with him, right?
Yeah, exactly. Kind of more on the mellow side, yeah.
That's right. Well, man, Sun Ra. Well, that's a
But
whole.
he could put some fire on, he could push down the gas pedal.
Man, I mean, to me, John Gilmore, when he was on, is like, that's as good as tenor playing gets for the most part, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, frankly, Sonny was lucky to have him for 40 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know? Well, so onward. So now, how did you get from playing with Sun Ra to deciding to go to Berkeley and go, in a sense, back to school and kind of further your education that way? Was it about Alan Dawson? Was it about getting a degree? What did you have in mind?
Well, at one point, I guess my mom found out that I wasn't doing school anymore, so I said I want to go back and get a degree. Yeah, go back and kind of finish up.
Yeah.
So that was one of the inspirations, and then the gigs weren't. It was like I wasn't like totally busy doing Sunrise gig,
Mm-hmm.
so I wasn't so busy, so I had the time. I was thinking, okay, now's the time to make some decisions about what I want to do.
Okay. All right.
And
So now, when you went up to Berkeley, when was that, Bruce? Around 1980 or 81?
around 1980, yeah, going
Okay.
up to Berkeley.
And I think we discussed this, ourselves before the interview. You hit Berkeley at really a golden period. I mean, the cats who were there as students at the same time is kind of incredible looking back. But I believe what I was told when I got to town was that Branford had just left and Tane was there, Jeff Watts and Marvin Smitty Smith. And did Kenny Garrett go to Berkeley? I can't remember.
Kenny who?
Kenny Garrett.
Oh, I don't remember. I don't remember Kenny Garrett so much.
Well, so I guess my first question would be: were Smitty and Tane already there when you got there, and were you completely blown away when you heard these two bad motherfuckers?
Hell yeah, that was a big part of the inspiration,
Uh-huh.
and you know, you know, because for some reason I didn't like. I kind of thought about schools as it's nice. It's a nice idea, but I didn't see that as the end. All
Right.
as far as playing like straight ahead or funk. Because I knew it was. I kind of had an idea. It wasn't. It was more of a feeling than anything written or to be instructed. By someone else, and hearing those cats play, it was like, okay, yeah, it's some instructions going on here, and it's kind of straight ahead as far as the learning process. But there's a lot of improv in there, like putting your own self in the music. So
Well, it must have been inspiring. You must not have expected drum students to be that heavy. I mean, you probably thought, well, there'll be some cats who can play, but I mean, Smitty and Tane are two terrifying drummers, and I'm sure even at the age of 20, they were really playing, man.
oh, for sure, and that was a huge part of it. Just being around such high caliber musicians, and not only just being a musician, but people, because I guess that's a big part of it for me too,
I see.
being
Yeah.
being able to play your ass off, but
Right.
just being kind of a good
Well,
person.
my experience over the years with my limited contact with those two cats is that Tane is a sweetheart, and that Smitty would rather be practicing timpani than go to a party. You know, I saw him do it. I mean, at Banff, Smitty. I mean, when we were at Banff, we were in Canada, we were playing jazz, but everybody was hanging and drinking and playing all the time, and Smitty was always in the shed.
Hmm.
And he was probably 24 years old, but he was already playing with Dave Holland. He was already one of the cats. Just a couple other quick drummers. Were Billy Keelson and Ron Savage in Berkeley with you at the same time?
Yep, they sure were.
Two more great drummers.
Billy Kilston and Ron is I think he's a
Is he like the head of the percussion department now, or something
percussion
like
department at Berkeley now. Yeah, he is. Yeah.
that? Well, if you stay at Berkeley for like 42 years, that can happen.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a great drummer. But I mean, when I first came to town, Bruce, I had a friend take me to Wally's in the South End.
Mhm.
And the band that I heard was, you remember this cat, Terry Conley, who played B3 organ?
Yep, Terry. Yeah.
Well, and Terry was heavy, but the other cats were even heavier. This trio was Terry, Greg Osby, and Billy Keelson, and it scared the living shit out of me. I was 16 years old. I thought I was bad for the age that I was, but when I heard Osby and Billy, I thought, man, there's a lot of work to be done, because Billy Keelson.
Wally's on Mass Ave.
That's right. Well, Billy Keelson, was not like a college level drummer. He was already a tremendously swinging, exciting drummer at that
Yeah.
point. I mean, we played like, club dates together. But so anyway, were you friends with some of these cats? Did you share ideas and kind of have some kind of, I don't know, brotherhood of fine drummers at Berkeley?
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. Billy and uh, Jeff. Oh, I was in Smitty. Actually, I think I studied with Smitty
Mm-hmm.
and Jeff. I've always loved what he does. So
Sure.
I've been listening to him forever. And there was a bunch of other cats. I don't remember some names, but those were those were some of the cream of the crop cats. But I learned a lot from just it was like some local cats too who weren't in school, like because they respected the fact that there was some good cats, some other good musicians around, and there'd be like some local drummers or
Like, I don't know,
local.
like John Ramsey or Grover Mooney or some of these guys. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, John Ramsey, I used to study with him as well, and he was also he was at Berkeley teaching. I think he just retired just recently.
Well, so safe to say you were at Berkeley at kind of a golden time, and I guess you probably got more than you expected there. It was even more positive, and the level was maybe higher than you could have imagined.
Oh,
Um,
it was. It
and,
was the
and
right move.
when you were part of it, but I mean, there was some real playing going on. These are not a bunch of students, really.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, so did you go?
and I hope that it continues.
Yes, I hope so too. Well, my question is, so did you get your degree for mom?
No, I didn't. I kind of got some gigs, and I
Right. Well,
and I, and I
what gigs did you get that you would say kind of ended your tenure at Berkeley, that kind of took you out on the road and got you started again?
um I'd have to think about it. But I know like working with people like was it Sonny Rollins?
That was early.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? That
It
might
was
be
a
good.
little bit later. I got to get all the time, the
Yeah,
times
the
right.
chronology could be a little hazy. Well,
Yeah.
so let's talk about Sonny. We'll play something first, but I just want to point out that the opening music we played tonight was Sonny's piece Strode Road, which was on the original Saxophone Colossus, and that's a tremendous band of people that I know too. And I played a lot with two of them, but not three. But Robbie Coltrane on tenor, and Esiot, Okan Esiot on bass, and Dave Kokoski on piano. A tremendous band. And I noticed the way you play Strode Road is kind of more of, you know, almost like an R&B groove mixed with Sonny rather than a just straight ahead approach. And I kind of appreciate you're already tying together R&B and Sonny and all the elements of your musical life. You know, they coexist. They don't have to be one by one.
Yeah.
Right. And so, well, before we talk about your amazing experience with Sonny Rollins, why don't we hear it? Are you familiar with this video? We're going to play Sonny Rollins' band with you in it on drums, with his nephew Clifton Anderson on trombone. And I don't recall who the rest of the rhythm section is, but we'll see. We'll find out. And it's Tenor Madness in Japan. So,
all right.
So let's
check it out.
Let's find out what it's like and who else is in it. Okay. So here's Sonny Rollins' Tenor Madness with Bruce Cox on drums. Coming up.
Okay, let's rock him on out of here now.
Sonny Rollins, man. I didn't know that Sonny didn't solo first on that, so we got a big, good earful of Clifton Anderson on trombone, and I'm pretty sure Stephen Scott on piano, right?
Yeah, Stephen Scott on piano.
And was that John Lee on electric bass?
John Lee on electric bass, exactly.
And Victor C.N. on percussion, right? So,
Yeah.
you know, what's interesting about that is that's definitely not Sonny playing bebop and playing a bunch of complex harmonic structure.
Yeah.
That's Sonny playing some gut bucket roadhouse kind of blues. And I feel like that must have been the mood of the moment, because Sonny doesn't always play that way.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
I've heard him in situations playing more linear, like kind of, blowing some lines, but
Right.
he was just going for the vibe, Yeah. So.
Well, would it be fair to say that Sonny, without disparagement to other musicians, is more of a real improviser who takes more chances on stage and doesn't rehash the stuff that he knows as much as many of the rest of us do?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I thought that was a part of, like, just being a great musician, but also being just a good person, kind of not playing it safe, by going for something that would work. And he was kind of, still searching.
Yeah, and Sonny, did he actually turn 90 this year? Or was it 89? Do you know?
I think, he's 90.
I think it might be 90, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I don't think he's playing, but I mean,
I heard he's not playing anymore. Yeah.
yeah, but he's still here, and he always has really wise and witty things to say. I mean, I went up to New Hampshire when he got the big medal that they give to one great artist a year at the McDowell Colony, and I knew it was going to happen. So I got a hotel room in New Hampshire, and I drove up there to watch Sonny get this award. And Sonny, I mean, most of the people at that place, they're composers, but they're a lot of visual artists and writers. And Sonny just said something like, when he received the award, well, I used to do a lot of drawing and painting when I was a child, so I really appreciate what you all are doing. So, I mean, forgive my Sonny imitation, but something like that, And so, I mean,
I like him there.
Well, thanks. Well, but I mean, man, let's talk about Sonny Rollins. I mean, man, what a giant, what a swinging ass, what a true original. How did you feel the first time you got a call to play with Sonny, or did it happen another way?
Well, it kind of makes you think, like, oh, maybe he got something to say, if he can employ what you're doing, and because I always see him as a giant, and yeah, it was definitely, I felt good about this, being able to play in that band, and it was a great feeling, yeah.
Well, I guess
and kind of
my question,
being acknowledged.
Of course. Well, was Sonny aware of you? Did he hire you, or did somebody else in the band hire you, or do you remember how you got the gig?
I think playing with, because Bob Cranshaw used to do it, as he was a bassist as well. He was,
right.
One of, yeah. So I think it was through playing, somehow hooking up with Bob Cranshaw. Yeah.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
And so when did you play with Sonny? What years were that? Because I think you told me once that you played with him for a while, right?
Yeah, it took like about 3 years, 3 or 4 years or so. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that was one of the first times that I started to travel internationally.
Sure.
Like go to Japan and places like that, Australia. So yeah, it was really, I was very excited about the travel, and to have touched somebody like that, you know, who's recognized. Kind of, it was like kind of validation. And
Well, it's total validation because you go on stage with Sonny Rollins, the assumption of the audience is, well, if they're up there, they must be the right cats,
yeah,
right?
and yeah. So playing with him and with JJ Johnson, that was, I think they might have had say managers or something. Somehow
Okay.
he heard
Well,
about it.
they must have been tight going back to the 40s, those two.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I noticed something on your bio, Bruce, that I didn't know. Is this true? Did you play J.J. Johnson's final concert?
I think so.
What's the story with that? Where were you, and were you working with JJ, or was it just kind of a one-off show? Or
Well, I have been working with JJ for a while. Yeah,
oh, okay,
yeah. So, and it wasn't a one off. Yeah, it was yeah. I'd been doing it for a while, and trying to think. Was Rini Rosnes?
yep.
Uh, oh, this tenor player. Well, it'll come back to me. But what's this tenor player? Oh, shucks.
I think he had this young cat from school or something. Tom Gullion might have been him.
No, it was somebody. It's somebody who was kind of on the scene now a bunch, and I would.
Well, tell us
Rufus
about
Reed.
JJ. Well, I'm sorry.
It was Rufus Reed,
Okay.
J.J. Reedney. Uh, oh my! I think this cat is like kind of a West Coast.
Oh,
He's probably
you know what, Bruce? Maybe it was Ralph Moore.
Ralph Moore. That's exactly who it was.
Good. Okay. Well, so man, tell us about JJ. I'll tell you one thing Frank West said about him, and then you tell us your reaction and what you feel about JJ. Frank said something like, "That's JJ. He don't like something, he just checks out."
Yeah, he was like a real gentleman, JJ, and and he can definitely had a lot of chops when he wanted to, but I think music took more precedence than somebody who was kind of chop heavy. He wanted to get the ideas across, like musical ideas,
Right.
and I noticed sometimes just the youth and the aggressiveness that people want to put across, it could kind of get in the way of being musical, and he was very musical.
Sure. Well, JJ was really a trombonist. I mean, the way that, every guitar player is hip to what Pat Martino did. Every piano player is scared of Art Tatum. Every drummer is aware of Tony Williams. I mean, JJ would be somebody that any jazz trombonist would be aware of and probably really dug. And so when you toured with JJ, were there always trombone players kind of hanging around, checking it out, going up?
For sure, yeah.
I would think so.
Yeah, they were to get a taste,
Yeah.
to see how he did it, get it straight from the horse's mouth, like yeah.
Well, because to me, JJ had such great technique and facility on the trombone. He was not kind of strap bound by the instrument the way a lot of other people had been. And he seemed to actually really open up the trombone to a lot of possibilities.
And I think that's what it was, that you could feel that confidence that he had a lot of chops and he could do a lot of stuff, and that kind of freed him up from having to prove it and just being more musical.
I see. Well, speaking of that, I didn't want to just leave Sonny Rollins. Can you tell us some things that you feel that you learned without speaking, just from playing with Sonny or being around him? And can you tell us a few things that Sonny might have said to you during your tenure there that really stuck with you until today?
Well, letting, not having any preconceived ideas of what the music is going to be for that evening, or you know, like we play a lot, and we played, and but it could take a lot of different directions than you would imagine
You mean like,
music
for
going.
example, you didn't play the same set every night, and whatever you played last night on Tuesday, maybe it's a totally new opener on Wednesday, or some standard that he hadn't played in years, and he decided to play it. That kind of last minute decision making about the repertoire.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So you'd have to describe even Sonny's set planning as very in the moment.
Totally.
Yeah. So you're playing with
Because a lot of times we wouldn't know. Well, we would rehearse a couple of things, but
Mhm.
I wouldn't know what we were going to play until you
So
called
the
it right
thing
there
is,
on the stand.
right. So I guess my question is, even if you were confident in your place in the band and you knew Sonny dug you and trusted you as a drummer and as a musician, you had to be, your radar had to be up all the time, didn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Just
Because you didn't,
aware of what's
because
going
he,
on.
as opposed to some other band leaders, it might be a lot harder to know what to expect.
Yeah, but that's why I kind of like to join the musicality with just being a good person, or I kind of and I'm kind of seeing it now is that it could take any shape, or it could take different shapes, and not to limit your scope, or
So you
what.
appreciate that openness in your colleagues and in your former employers.
Yes, yeah,
I
I
hear you.
definitely. Yeah.
Well, speaking of that, man, let's go another way, and we got to talk about Fred, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So, so
yeah.
for a lot of folks, you might know Bruce most of all from playing with Sonny Rollins, or if you're another person, you might be aware of Bruce Cox because of his long and extremely funky tenure with Fred Wesley and the JBs. So that also has to be kind of a dream gig for a young man from Philadelphia who grew up with funk and soul to wind up playing with Fred Wesley and playing the real James Brown shit, right?
And and now that I'm thinking about it, it kind of comes back. I think full circle, that that was some of the stuff that I saw James Brown many a times at the Uptown Theater when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
And
uh,
was Fred always with him along with Maceo?
and I'm sure he was, but at the time I didn't know. Like, I wasn't following cats. I just knew that, oh, this sounds great. This is
Right.
something I could see myself up in this space.
Well, so this is a totally separate thing. I mean, we're going to
But
hear
of course,
something in a minute.
Fred and Maceo and
Pee Wee Ellis,
Pee Wee Ellis, they were the cats.
right? That's like the golden kind of triumvirate of a James Brown horn section.
Yeah, and luckily I got a chance to play with all those cats too in their bands.
Well,
Pee Wee's
I
band.
knew you had played with Pee Wee. You played with Maceo also.
Yeah, I played with Maceo as well. I
So,
did that in a tour with Maceo. Yeah.
well, so tell us, man. Tell us how you connected and started playing with Fred Wesley. Because now is that a relationship that continues now? Like, if there was no COVID and their gigs, would you be working with Fred right now?
Yep, right before COVID came, before it happened with Fred. I think with Fred, we've been all over the world. We used to always, like, sometimes we sit around joking about where haven't we been, and we're like, oh, Antarctica. Yeah, maybe
Right.
that's what we got to get up to Antarctica, and then we
Okay.
can say we traveled the world with
So a
Fred.
lot of touring. And how many years have you been playing with Fred Wesley, Bruce?
Beg your pardon?
How many years have you been playing with Fred?
Oh,
I mean, are we
maybe,
talking like 15 or 20?
yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. Well, and also interestingly, I don't know if a lot of people know this. It's going to sound like showing off, but it's not. Fred Wesley was actually in the trombone section of the Count Basie band for a while, was he not?
Sure was.
So that's a whole other thing. I mean, if you put somebody in a box and you listen to Fred Wesley, you immediately think of James Brown and Maceo, and you think of him as so-called a funk musician, and then you say, yeah, but he was with Basie also. So, and he certainly plays a lot more stuff than the average horn player in a rock band of any kind, right? I mean, this is another virtuoso trombone player.
And that's one of the things that kept it interesting. I guess I didn't realize it so much at the time, but you know, he because he was so versatile as a player, it kept it fresh. You know, I wasn't bored. You know, it wasn't like okay, I'm going to work. It was always.
So point being, if let's say all this shit ends in 3 months or 6 months and we can all go back to work, you'll be excited to play with Fred again.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, why don't we hear some and then see what we think. So let me just see which. Well, this is a live concert of Fred Wesley and the JBs. JB, of course, stands for James Brown. The JBs.
The new JBs.
Oh, the new JBs. Okay. And the first thing we're going to hear in this video is not Fred. It's going to be you. This song starts with Bruce Cox on the drums, and kind of like King Curtis on Memphis Soul Stew, kind of builds the band recipe from the ground up. So
let's check it out.
Yeah, let's check it out. Here comes Fred Wesley with Bruce Cox on drums. I'm growing a beard here. Any minute now. Yeah, man. Fred Wesley and the JBs with Bruce Cox on drums. And was that too, is that the right title?
What do you say?
I said, what was the right title of that song?
Oh, I forgot the name of that tune.
I think the notes on the video said "Funk for Your Butt."
Funk for Your Ass. Yeah, that's it.
Funk
Yeah.
for Your Ass. Okay, and that's
Yeah,
recorded
Funk for
in
Your Ass.
Marciac in I think it said 2016. Can you enlighten us real quick? Who are the other cats in the band? Everybody sounds great.
Okay, that was Bruno Spate on guitar. He's from Maceo's band normally.
Okay,
And Dwayne Dolphin on bass.
that
Peter
was Dwayne.
Madsen.
Oh, that was Dwayne played electric bass. I had no idea. Okay,
Yeah, Peter Madsen on piano.
Peter Madsen. Okay,
Yeah. Uh, um,
who was the trumpet player and the tenor player?
the trumpet player was he's still he lives in Germany. I can oh shucks, I'm terrible with names. But these cats are still in the band, and the tenor player. The tenor player is on the West Coast now. Oh man, my wife is laughing at me because I can't remember the names right away.
That's cool, and I'm sure the guys will forgive you. You probably only played 163 gigs with both of them, you know.
Yeah, probably only
But
more.
well, that's
Wait,
cool. You know what, man? That's why this series is called Convo Improvvo. We're allowed a few blemishes, but you know, everybody in the band sounds killing, man, and it looks like a lot of fun, no doubt.
and that reminds me of we used to play in Berlin a lot.
Yeah.
That's some was it Quasimodo, I think it was.
Okay.
And we played there over the years, and I remember we used to play before the wall went down, and we were playing there one time when the wall went down, but we didn't know what was going on. Oh, I didn't anyway. And
Wow.
I thought there's just a lot of army cats around, but it was more than that to it. And then we played there after as well too. So we've been playing Quasimodo a bunch,
Well, that brings me to something else. I don't remember when this was, or you can hip us to the chronology. But at one point, I might have seen you in New York, and I said, how you doing? What's happening? And you said, I live in France. So you did live in Paris, did you not?
Yeah, I lived in Paris for about a year and a half, 2 years, and that's where I met my beautiful and lovely wife.
All right. And what made you move to Paris? Were you in New York when you decided to go there?
Well, a friend from Berkeley, a bass player,
Was that
was
Gilles
in
Berkeley?
Idris Badarou.
Oh, okay. I don't know him. Yeah.
Yeah, he was. He lived in my building on the Fenway. I used to
Oh,
live
in
on
Boston. Okay.
in Boston,
And
and
so
he was
what happened with him?
and so I guess he moved back to France, to Paris. Yeah, and he played with Rashid Tahar. He played, he did a lot of stuff there, and so he was like, maybe you should come check it out because we used to hang out together. So I went over there and I started getting some work over there. Yeah, so
Did you
it was a nice.
did you get too busy to leave?
Well, yeah, I think so. That's what it was. I kind of got some gigs and I was like, yo, this is what I want to do. So I stayed there for a while. I was
And
working around.
how would you describe Bruce to a young?
Morocco, the gal singer. I did I guess.
If there was a young musician, I mean, it's a terrible time right now, and people can't
Make the
work.
slam.
Well, I wanted to ask you if you were giving advice to, say, a 20-year-old kid who came out of Berkeley now, or Eastman, or NEC, or North Texas, and they had never lived in Europe. What would you tell them about the vibe between living in a place like New York and Boston, and the differences living in Europe in general and in Paris in particular?
Well, I saw that they had a lot of I'm kind of food oriented, and I saw that there was a lot of things that were new and interesting things that we didn't have, or some of that kind of like the food thing. That was nice,
Sure.
and just to be playing with some cats that it was like it kind of showed me that even though we're quite different and live far away from each other, there's some commonality in it.
Well, the
We have
question
something.
is, did you go over there? Did you feel excited but a little nervous, or like worrying about the language? And you did learn to speak French while you were there, did you not?
Yes, I did, and I thought because I'd taken it in high school that
Uh-oh. Now I'm
I
laughing.
thought I thought okay, I should be all right. I took a little high school in French, but it was like it was kind of funny, and you should laugh too because it's it wasn't like I guess I didn't meet the people who were speaking French from the books. They were they were like it was a lot of argot and just practical stuff going on that that they didn't teach us in high school.
Right. But you said, now I mean, obviously you met your wife there. She's here in the room today. So it's a big impact on your life, but you didn't really stay that long. You said just a year and a half?
Well, about 2 years, yeah, maybe about two
Okay.
years. Yeah.
All right. And then what made you move back to New York from Paris? What was that decision about?
I guess it was the music, a lot about the music too. Yeah,
Sure.
music played a big part in my life all the time. Just wanting to continue to grow and explore new musics.
Sure. Well, and let's talk about maybe a short list of some of the other cats that you recorded with, different kinds of folks along the way. So I see you recorded at least 2 CDs with James Zoller, who is really a wonderful trumpet player.
He's still and always a good friend. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. And didn't he live in Paris or Germany? I forget.
I think he lived in Germany for a while. Yeah.
Okay. And Ofer Asaf, and 2 records with Fabio Morgera, who I remember was at Berkeley when we were in Boston. So that goes all the way back here.
Right.
Great.
And he's back in Italy. He lives in Italy.
I
don't know. Yeah.
And then also, I hope I'm saying his name right, but the trumpet player, Hugh Reagan.
Hugh was original. He was one of the original from Fred Wesley's band. It was Hugh,
okay.
And tenor player. Oh my God, Tiny Universe. Oh man,
Carl Denson.
Carl Denson.
I got your back, man.
Yeah, okay, yeah, Carl Denson and Hugh. They were original. They were originals from Fred Wesley's band.
Was that Carl in the video with Fred Wesley?
No,
that was another tenor player.
Yeah, that's another. I'm going to think of his name in a minute, but that's not Carl. And the originals were Carl and Hugh, and there was no guitars.
Okay. Well, actually, I noticed something interesting. So, I mean, I'm watching that video. I'm thinking, man, this bass player sounds great. Who is that? This piano player sounds great. Who is that? I didn't recognize them. But interestingly, it looks like it's a jazz trio album featuring the 3 of you doing what all 3 of you are really quite good at doing too, but it's like the opposite universe. So Peter Madsen on piano is a fella that I know he lives in Europe now, but I saw him with Stan Getz in Boston at Night Stage. And that band was Anthony Cox, Terry Lynn Carrington, and Peter Madsen. And I just remember it was like blindfold tests. I said, I have never seen this piano player in my life. Who the hell is it? He sounds great. And Stan goes, Peter Madsen on piano. I'm like, I've never heard of him, but he's as good as anybody I've ever heard. So we're going to hear that rhythm section that we just heard with Fred playing acoustic jazz, for lack of a better term, not to limit it, but Peter Madsen on piano, Dwayne Dolphin on upright bass, and Bruce Cox on, as they like to say in New York, drums and cymbals. And again, to tie all the shit up, so here are your brothers in the rhythm section from Fred's band, but you're playing jazz together, but you're playing a Sonny Rollins composition, Paul's Pal, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So that's what we're gonna hear, and it's kind of a funny tune. I'm trying to remember, was Tenor Madness the record that was from way back, the Sonny record from the late '50s or early '60s? That
Paul's Pal. I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm not sure where it came from, but
Yeah.
it was one of my favorites.
Yeah, I hear that. Well, let's hear this. And I know that Dwayne Dolphin is he from Pittsburgh?
He's from Pittsburgh,
And
and
where is Peter
he's
from?
also played with a lot of straight ahead as well as funk, and
Yeah.
just a good person, well-rounded musician.
Incredible all-around bass player, any style,
Yeah.
any bass. So, and I'm not going to say Peter Madsen Trio. I think it's a collective, but here comes Peter Madsen, Dwayne Dolphin, Bruce Cox, Sonny Rollins is Paul's Pal. Not a song that's played a whole lot. Sorry, I was muted. So Bruce,
Okay.
What do you think hearing that recording again, and what year do you think it might have been?
I don't know what year it might have been, but hearing it again, I feel like it was pretty honest, kind of, you know.
So you feel good about it. It's that kind of
Yeah,
retrospect. Well, I can live with this
yeah,
recording.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, it was real swinging. It was real nice. And there's that one, that note, the way Peter reharms that note is deep.
Yeah.
I don't know what that voicing is, but I'd like to find out, you know?
And,
Yeah, it
and
was,
sometimes it's kind of nice not to for knowing the reharm of it, the reharmonization of it, or kind of the technical things of it about what happened, but just the fact that it felt really good. You know, it's something that I wanted to do and be a part of. So
yeah, man. Well, you know,
yeah,
I have to say, man, you have one of the beautiful smiles in jazz, probably influenced by the Billy Higgins smile. And so when I play with you, on the rare times we get to do it, or when I see you play, like in that video with Sonny, and in the video with Fred, just a little time here and there where you smile, man, but it's like wide open. I mean, it's clear that you're happy being where you're at that moment.
hmm
And that's a nice thing to take away really from seeing cats play
yeah.
any kind of live music, you know, right?
And I feel like just this with this interview and just talking about some of this, I'm inspired. You know, it gives you some inspiration and to keep going and yeah, find something new. You know,
Well,
find
speaking of
something
which,
old.
in spite of the general lack of gigs because of venues closed and COVID restrictions, I wanted to tell folks that you are playing, which is really cool. It's to me, it's kind of like great fortune during this time. And I'm just looking for my notes. Basically, so you're playing at a place in Brooklyn right now in 2020 in October, called Brownstone Jazz in the Bed-Stuy neighborhood, and you said you all are playing there Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights each week.
There's Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays.
Oh, sorry, Friday. And what time is the gig?
Yeah, Fridays is like after work. You know, we start about 5 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
and go to about 8. They're all approximate times. And then Saturday, uh, we started earlier, like maybe 4 o'clock to about 7 or 8.
No
And
kidding.
then Sunday we start a little later, like five
Well,
o'clock.
so given the fact that most of the gigs that we had or would have are not happening, do you feel extremely fortunate to be playing 3 times a week in your own general neighborhood and not having to travel a lot and getting to play during this horrible time?
Right, and it's not gigs, but it's a chance to play and keep the art alive, you know, and
That's right.
it's beautiful.
Well, you
It's
know, I have to say, Bruce, you know, talking to you tonight, I think we're going to wrap it up kind of soon, if that's all right. But not without playing some music from your own band before we do. But I mean, my takeaway from talking to you is that your credo, the thing you live by, is basically play good music and be a good person.
yeah.
I mean,
Somehow they're
I hear that
connected.
coming back over and over again when you're talking about different situations, right?
Yeah, I think that's important. Yeah.
Well, and I appreciate that kind of positivity, particularly during a difficult period for a lot of people, and and I know that you're inspiring a lot of people, Bruce. Now and in the past, you've inspired me, man. I mean, we did one gig. Do you remember with David Budway's band at Smalls?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
we rehearsed at his place in Nyack, New York, and that was some hard music, man. And he had a great bass player, Gianluca Renzi, an Italian bass player,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
you were playing drums, and Budway and myself, and anyway, it was just a great experience. It was it was a rhythm section of 3 very strong cats, but who played extremely well together. And I was trying to remember the name of that song. It was something about being inside a tunnel or about driving, but it was like this crazy mixed meter thing. It was really melodic and beautiful, but it had all these
Mm.
7 and 13, and somehow we pulled it off, but it was not easy, you know.
Yeah.
The Budman's music is not easy. And remember, at his house, whenever you go to a cat's house to rehearse, they offer you coffee, right? And he always says, "Do you want some Bud Blend?" See, he's got his own blend of coffee. So a shout out to you, Dave. If you get to see this at some point, man, we love you. And
Yeah.
one of the
Yeah, he's still going on with the club. He has that club in Nyack.
That's right.
I think his name is his sister.
It's Marine's Jazz Cellar, and I think
Exactly.
at least they're doing streaming, live gigs and streaming with no live audience. So that is happening if you're still there. But man, I just find you to be a really grooving drummer and incredibly solid and incredibly adaptable. And when I play with you, I feel like if it were my gig, anything I needed from you, I know that I would get. That's how I look at it. You know what I mean? And so what you bring to the gig is a lot of finesse and a lot of groove and a lot of experience. And I just want you to know I really enjoy your playing, man. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it, and it was a pleasure being here. And I hope we inspire somebody come in. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that we will. I should do a couple things. We're going to thank our producer Herschel McWilliams in Kansas City, Missouri, at Live Jazz KC.
Thank you, Herschel.
Yeah, man, for keeping the website going and for allowing us to do these interviews with all these great. It sounds silly, but to say jazz stars, because to me they're all real stars in the horizon. And speaking of which, the next 3 coming up are on October 13th. We have bassist Matthew Garrison. On the 20th, drummer Victor Jones, and on the 25th, pianist Francesca Tanksley, 3 of the greatest musicians that I know. And I'm looking forward to talking to all of them. And we're going to have Rini Rosnes. I believe we have to reschedule the date. But then later on, we're going to have Billy Harper, Micah Benny, Billy Drummond, Alex Sipiagin. And even if we're not making money and we're not performing a lot, we are definitely keeping this music alive by having these conversations that are going to be archived and permanent to tell the stories of folks that I think are the greatest living musicians right now in jazz and beyond, including you, Bruce Cox.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm going to remember that.
Yeah, the next time I see you, I'm going to remember you complimented me. That'll be $100 extra. All right. Well, I'm Rob Scheps for Convo Improvvo here with Live Jazz KC, and my friend and my guest this evening has been amazing drummer and human Bruce Cox, and we're gonna take you out with some music of Bruce's band playing live at the Fat Cat in New York City. And Bruce, thank you for joining us, man. I had a blast talking to you.
Likewise.
Yeah, thank you, man. Okay, so here it is, and I guess this will be broadcast pretty soon after we lock it up here. So you can tell your friends livejazzkc.com or the Facebook page of Live Jazz KC. That's all the interviews are there for sure. So, and thanks to your wife for helping us with some technical difficulties early on, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she helped.
Yeah. All right, Bruce. Well, look, hope to see you again in New York or other places. And again, thanks for joining us. Bruce Cox, man, everybody, on Live Jazz KC. Thank you, Bruce.
You're quite welcome, and thank you.
All right. Here comes Bruce at the Fat Cat.
Thank you.